And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
125! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
A decade of design, 5 years of development, and now there's less than 16 hours until launch. Hello everyone, welcome to NSF Live, our weekly news show, live every Sunday. This week we've got some live views of Starbase as we're getting ready for that big shiny rocket in the middle of your screen to finally launch. Alongside me this afternoon is Alex. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing fantastic. I couldn't be more excited.
And we also have Sawyer Rosenstein. Are you getting excited, Sawyer?
Oh, excited is an understatement. While I have 10 seconds before we go all in on Starship, I want to give a shout out to all the NSF fans that came up to me at Yuri's Night Space Coast. Thank you for watching. Thanks for coming up to me. And now, let's Starship away.
Sounds awesome. In the background, we have Kevin and Patrick operating, and of course, my name is Ryan Caton. I'll be your host for today's show. Now, as always, on NSF Live, we want your questions. If you've got a question, put it in chat, tag us at NASASpaceflight, and in the final day, it's not Christmas Eve, it's Starship Orbital Flight Eve, we want to know what you're excited about. Anything you don't know about and you want to know about, now is kind of your final opportunity to ask, because tomorrow, fingers crossed, Alex, this thing should be going.
Indeed, we are very, very close to the launch of a Starship, and it's been a long time coming, many, many years of following this. And tomorrow, the window opens at 7 a.m. Central. That should be 1200 UTC, and it runs for 2.5 hours. And oh boy, I'm certainly right now like already shaking about that, because it's like, oh my god, less than 16 hours to that historic launch of a Starship. We'll be going live later today, I think, because it's between later today and early tomorrow, depending on the time zone that you are living in, for that live stream. It's gonna be awesome.
And Sawyer, it's been a long time coming. The as Alex was saying, everything's kind of pointing to tomorrow. What, in your opinion, how likely do you think that we're actually going to see a launch tomorrow? Because we've all heard the S word, we've all heard the scrub word, but in your opinion, do you think it's actually going to go?
I honestly think we had a really great example just about a month or so ago with Terran 1, where, you get deep into the count, you go for the countdown, and then right before you enter the terminal portion, you see something that's just not right, so you wait and reset, try again later in the window. I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to that, where we'll see them try for sure. I'm going to guess multiple times within that window, but I think it may take a couple days for them to finally get it off the ground completely. But when it does, it will be exciting.
Now, Alex, we've got a question here from Kurt asking, can the OLM survive a vehicle detonation at/right after launch? What's your opinion on the, how should we say this? The structural capabilities of surviving an impact on stage 0?
Oh boy. For one hand, it looks like it's very strong, very sturdy. It's like it could probably get that damage from an explosion. But again, it is also true that it's the biggest rocket, like the most powerful, most massive, largest, like all the superlatives that you can put on a rocket, basically, right? And so given that, it should be very, 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 very strong, very, very tough of a launch pad. I'm not sure. My answer is that let's hope not to figure that out ever, because man.
Yeah, not a good day.
Mhm.
Active Camo Sawyer has a question about the fuel tanks. Are they vacuumed down prior to being filled? Well, one set of tanks being filled with liquid methane and the other set being filled with liquid oxygen.
Not sure exactly what you mean by vacuumed down. I know that they will begin adding the fuel, preparing everything for fueling, start loading the fuel into the two separate tanks for the methane and for the liquid oxygen. And then just before flight, they will fully pressurize them up to flight pressures. So I'm not sure entirely what that means, but hopefully that answers it. Unless I'm missing something, Alex.
Um, well, so usually when you have it right there on the pad, you sort of keep it at a pressure. The common thing is to vent the tanks to equalize with the atmosphere, and then as you start loading propellants, obviously the space that the gas was in there on the tank, now it's being occupied by the fluids on the tank. So as you start fueling, I think actually Ryan explained this very well on the timeline video that we put out a few days ago, where as you start loading the tanks, you need to continually vent so that you release all of that gas, because all of the space that was there for that gas, now it's being taken by the fluids inside the tanks. So now you have to keep pumping out that gas as you keep fueling, as you keep loading propellants onto the vehicle. You need to do that, and especially once you get all the way to the top of the rocket, of the top of the tank, excuse me. Once you get up there, there's very little gas inside of the tank, so you need to vent that out as well, and that's sort of like the final procedure after you get to that topping off of the tank.
Yeah, those are the same ones that'll actually be used sort of as ohms thrusters in a way, or as maneuvering thrusters,
Hmm.
just releasing pressure from that. So that obviously tank pressures are very important, but it's a good way to maintain that balance. So it's not so much vacuumed versus not, it's more of maintaining a perfect stasis and balance by adding fuel and then venting and continuing the process through flight.
Before we went on air for this edition of NSF Live, we had many different not super chatter members and things like that. So I'm just going to run through them very quickly. Thanks to James for becoming a Red Team member. We also have Daniel gifting 10 Red Team memberships. We also have Ashton becoming a Red Team member, so a Padrap member in Duca. Sorry if I got that wrong. We also have a Daydreamer becoming a Red Team member. So is Steve. So is Stour, and we also have William becoming a Capcom member, along with three or four other people here. So if you are one of the people who just became a Capcom member, you now get access to the Discord. So thank you for all of them. And we also have a launch director member. That's one of the highest tiers there is. That also means you get your name at the end of the show. Thank you, Nick, for becoming a launch director member. We also have a question here from Amrit asking, on a realistic note, how likely will they launch tomorrow? If not, what do you think will cause the scrub? Now, Alex, is there any potential problems that could cause a scrub tomorrow?
Well, it seems like the pad, the vehicles already. Definitely, this is not the first time that they come together. So this is not going to be sort of like SLS, where yes, they did multiple wet dress rehearsals and things like that. But prior to SLS going into the pad, for example, there like the previous rocket that went into that pad was actually an Ares 1X. So it's like all of those interfaces hadn't been used for 10 years or more. Here they've been using, the OLM, the ship quick disconnect, all of that has been used for well over a year on countless tests, right? And so those are systems that have been thoroughly put to the test, and hopefully they behave tomorrow during that countdown sequence, during that propellant load sequence. And the only thing that we maybe have to worry about is what SpaceX tweeted today, that they're looking. So the weather is looking great in general, but there's one item that they're looking at, which is wind shear at high altitudes, and that is basically the wind goes in different directions as you go up into the atmosphere. And so what they don't want is the rocket to suddenly encounter a very sudden directional shift on those winds. So you don't want that to happen to your rocket, because then it veers, of course, or like pushes it in the wrong way or something like that. You don't want that to happen, right? And so if that wind shear is too high, you obviously just don't launch. It is also true that it's possible here that for the first launch they're being cautious, and they have very, like, they have a certain set of weather constraints are more conservative for this first launch, which is very usual in the industry.
Yeah, and we're talking hundreds of knots pushing sideways against the vehicle, which has caused issues with vehicles in the past. So SpaceX learning from that, and obviously that being a concern. So when you hear those three words, upper level winds, that's part of the concern with it. Isn't just that, oh, it's gusty, it's where it's gusting and what it can do pushing the vehicle off course, forcing the vehicle to try and correct, and that can cause some issues. And my guess, the only other thing that I think would cause an issue personally that might cause the scrub would be Raptor engines. We saw even on the 33 engine static fire test, one of them they turned off prior to igniting, and one they turned off during the ignition. So I could see something like that happening as well, and then having to check and see, okay, why didn't this engine or that engine fire?
Yeah, I think an analogy I like to use to try and explain how upper level winds and especially wind shear works is, kind of imagine you're swimming through a pool, and at one moment you're getting like a strong current pulling you towards the right, and then in a couple of meters further down you're then getting a strong current pulling you to the left. So that's kind of the opposite winds. That's kind of how they would affect the rocket as it ascends through the atmosphere. Different levels of winds pushing the vehicle in different directions. We also have a question here from Andre asking, the suborbital tank farm, will it be docked or connected to the orbital tank farm? Now, Alex, we've seen some tankers filling up the suborbital tank farm, but this isn't leaving from the suborbital pad.
Yeah, this is from the orbital tank farm. It is true that they could be, but we really haven't seen any sort of connections to the ground tanks, because there was at one point some arguments whether they had actually put some connections between both places. It's possible that excuse me, that some features, like, I don't know, I'm thinking mostly for employees, sanitation and things like that, might be common to both places, because you only want like one central place. And then, because I know that there have some of those services down there, because we've seen it basically. And so the reason of pipes going from one place to the other might be that the case. But then the ground systems themselves, like when you look at the ground tank farms, like the ground tanks on the tank farm, you don't really see any of that connections from those pipes that were sort of talked about in that moment. And this was like 2 years ago when they were building all of this. So it was a long time ago. It could be that now they're connected. We don't fully know. It is most likely not connected though. Like, if I were to bet, I will bet on them not being connected. But the official answer that I will give right now, it will be, we don't fully know.
The official answer is no answer. There we go, because we don't know.
It's an answer, because I'm giving you all of the options here that it could be, because we saw some pipes in here and there, but then you look at the ground tanks and they don't seem to be connected to any other pipes other than the ones they are connected already. So not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be storage at this point for future attempts, because it takes a lot of fuel to load up this rocket. And as you've seen from our recent video, that there's not a lot of stops on the way to Starbase. So to get the trucks all the way out there to refill is going to take some time.
And that's actually something that SpaceX has done in previous times, but at the Cape, where they had shortages of certain consumables on one pad, and then what they did is on the other pad they had different constraints. They could load consumables in that other pad and to preserve any sort of attempts at a recycle, like within 24 hours or something like that, they will use those consumables on the other pad and just transport them up the road, like it's just a few miles up the road, to be able to use those for a recycle attempt. That could be the case here as well.
We've got a few more questions coming in yet again for everyone who is just tuning in now. If you have a question and you want to try and get it asked asked and answered before the orbital test flight, which at earliest can launch in just under 16 hours time, make sure to put them in chat, tag us at NASASpaceflight. We'll do our best to answer them. And we have a question here about stage separation from XRT-MTRX, asking, Sawyer, I'll throw this one to you. Has the inertial stage separation method been tried by SpaceX before on Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, or Falcon 1 even?
I don't believe so. I know that this one is basically kind of just a connection between the ship and the booster, and using kind of like centripetal force basically as it's turning and angling over in flight, we'll be able to just release the kind of clamp that's holding it down in place and it'll separate away. Versus you've got that more of a separation kind of spring, as you'll see almost with the Falcon 9 separation. So they do this with their Starlink satellites, or at least did with the original V1s and V1.5s, where they would kind of spin it up and then release the piece that was holding them all together, and they would kind of just float outward and release. So it's been done for satellites, but I don't believe they've done it for any of their rockets before.
Yeah, I kind of laughed before because you mentioned Falcon 1 as well, and then I'm reminded of Falcon 1 Flight 2, where the first stage impacted a little bit the nozzle of the
Yeah.
second stage,
Mhm.
and it started oscillating and everything, and yeah, because it was like, yeah, a little bit of a kick to the second stage, but that was not a good kick.
Or dare I mention Ares 1X?
Oh God. Yeah, that too.
We have a question here from Kurt asking, what information, data does SpaceX get from this test flight on the booster landing? So I think what you're trying to ask there, Kurt, is that the booster is landing, doing a soft water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. So Alex, what data will SpaceX get by not deciding to attempt a chopstick recovery on this test flight?
Oh boy, well, the first and obvious one is they're gonna have already data on how the booster maneuvers, like tries to maneuver through the atmosphere as it re-enters and as it does its landing burn. Its guidance and navigation and control systems will be working with, along with our Raptor propulsion to try to get to basically pinpoint to that landing on the ocean. And so all of that data will be very valuable as they try to refine all of their guidance systems, all of the software, because they already have Falcon 9, but that works for Falcon 9, for the hardware that is on Falcon 9, and they're doing this weird now one engine reentries and things like that. We probably have to change some of our merge about that as well. But yeah, and so for Super Heavy, it's a different rocket, right? It reenters sort of like the Falcon 9, but it uses different engines, different responses from valves, the thrust, as it goes up and down with the throttles. Those are going to be different than from Falcon 9 with the Merlin. So they need actual flight data to corroborate all of their software. And from what we know right now, from some of the documents that have been released this week, as they have been granted that launch license, at least the first 3 launches will not attempt a landing back at the chopsticks. So they will all target a landing on the Gulf of Mexico, again simulating that landing, and that's pretty much what they did with Falcon 9. I believe it was like 3 attempts at a soft splashdown in the ocean, and that's when the 4th time they tried a landing on the barge, which didn't go as well, but at least it targeted, like it actually hit the barge, which I remember One Shot was talking about that they were not even sure that the Falcon 9 will hit the barge at all, and it didn't land, but it hit the barge. So it was like, yes, it's working, right? Because all of our guidance and systems for that, they were able to guide the booster to that location. So same thing here.
A question here from Ridges HQ. Sawyer, I'll throw this one to you. Has SpaceX already started their pre-flight checklist? NASA seems to start their stuff really early. So Sawyer, has SpaceX been going through any kind of checklists or any kind of procedures or anything along those lines?
I mean, they've been going through all of their flight reviews. Those have been going on for about a week. They have different milestones in their flight readiness that they go through to make sure that they are ready to go ahead for launch. So I'm sure they're also continuing to do work to check on the vehicle and check on the systems. And the biggest check left is going to be the go no go for fueling tomorrow morning, I think. Alex, unless were you going to add something?
Yeah, so I actually released I wrote an article sort of on the reviews up until Friday when they were granted the launch license. They had a flight readiness review on April 8th, on not this Saturday but last week Saturday. That sort of cleared the vehicles for the flight, but they had like a few open items. Usually have open items for that. Some of the open items, for example, the flight software was still being finalized. I believe it was finalized around Wednesday, if I remember correctly, and then they went into checkouts. They've been, doing all of those checkouts of that software for flight. It's being very bonkers right now, as I understand. And yeah, now it's just checking all the systems, checking all the computers, checking that everything works well, and the truth will come once they go into that propellant load, that the actual hardware, because right now they can test a little bit the hardware here and there, but the moment of truth will be when they actually go into the fueling. Right now it's mostly, running the computers, telling them, hey, do you really are reading all of this software the way that you should? And, ground computers, vehicle computers, all of that. And hopefully we'll see a liftoff in just under 15 hours and 35 minutes.
We'll also see what the people in chat think of it's going to go or not with the poll that just came out of launch Monday. Yes or no?
Yeah, I can see many people casting their votes in there at the moment. 76 of people optimistic at the moment. We'll see how that sways over time. Very quickly, though, I'm just going to run through a few more of these contributions. And I think that's Tracy Jackson becoming a new PadRap member. Thank you very much for that. We also have a super chat here from Blind Boy saying, concrete rain tomorrow. Alex, how do we think the concrete underneath the OLM is going to hold up?
Oh boy. I'm really hopeful that it holds up, because it's we saw it on the 31 engine static fire test. That was 50% thrust though. It did well. Like it was a little bit scorchy here and there, but it did kind of well. But this is gonna be the first time, if it actually lifts off tomorrow, which knock on wood it does. This is gonna be the first time that we're gonna see the top being blasted with all the exhaust of the engines, because right now, up until this point, we're only seeing all the exhaust being impinged on the legs. Now it's gonna be the time when it's gonna lift off, and all the QDs, all the top of the deck of the mount, all of that will be blasted. So let's hope that works. They put a lot of shielding there, so hopefully it works as intended, and they have no problems at all. Concrete, very more concretely speaking here, I guess, will be that the concrete, they have been working through that. The concrete for the 31 engine static fire test pretty much was okay. We did see some debris flying, but I'm mostly sure that was like the sort of dust around the pad being kicked off, and little rocks here and there, because that's normal, right? It didn't seem as violent as it was, for example, on prior static fire tests where actual chunks of concrete were flying away. That was very violent. Let's hope it is the same for the launch as well, that it's just pebbles and little rocks flying away and dust, but it's not like chunks of concrete.
And I should point out, as of right now, that's the only potential rain. Going back to my fun weather segment here, forecast for launch itself is sunny with a high near 76 Fahrenheit. Ground winds about 7 to 12 miles per hour, increasing a little later in the window, but nothing terrible. As mentioned, the only real concern is going to be the upper level winds. Back to you, Ryan.
Well, actually, on screen we have our new weather graphic, and these are
Yes.
the current conditions roughly around the orbital launch pad. About quite a strong gust there, 30 miles an hour and about 14 miles an hour winds heading towards the north. Mark is adding €5 to the Alex Bike Fund. Thanks very much. We also have
Oh, that's our
a new
shop.
Capcom member. Yeah, I know. And another super chat here. Thank you very much for all of these. A store message from Jasper as well. We also have, and that's of the new plushie pre-order. And we have a few more super chats coming in here as well. So thank you everybody who has been contributing. Again, sorry you can't read them all out, but we just get we get so many contributions. It would take an extremely long time to read out every single message. But please know that we appreciate every single contribution we get so much, and it goes a really long way in helping to keep our content running out the door. Really.
Wait,
We
Ryan,
have a.
did I hear you say something? Did you say a plushie pre-order?
Did I say a plushie pre-order? I don't know. Did I, Sawyer?
I think you
Yeah.
did. Almost like you can go to shop.nasaspaceflight.com and pre-order our Starship plushies. It is the full stack nonetheless, too. So that way, even they mate together with Velcro. It is one of the coolest designs. So the full stack plushies, if you want, you can start pre-ordering them now, finally, at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And I see, as you mentioned, the cards in the corner, people already doing it.
Yeah, they are. It's the new patch. They're gonna sell out really quickly, but of course the patch is still available. Everybody's favourite Starship patch, which you can see there. Gonna get into some more questions now. Again, if you have a question, put it in chat at NASASpaceflight. We'll do our best to answer. This is pretty much coming up now on the final opportunities you guys have to ask us questions, because we will have the lead up to launch, and then fingers crossed tomorrow we'll get to see this thing go. So we've got a few in the queue here, which I'm going to go through. And we have a question here from Master Quack. Alex, I'll throw this one to you. If an engine doesn't fire, would it need to be replaced?
I guess it depends on what is the reason why it didn't fire, right? Because we saw on, I think it was SN10, where they ignited the engines, and then they found out that basically they were more powerful than they were wanting them to be, and they were like, you know what? Let's just inhibit the sensors, whatever. Like, because the sensors were like, hey, this is too powerful. I don't want it. I don't like it, right? And so it aborted the liftoff, and then we were like, well, let's inhibit this and let's try again. So this could be another thing as well, that they ignite the engines, one engine doesn't work, and it's most likely just because of the sensor. It's like, ooh, you're working, like 1% off of what you should be, and then they're like, it's not a big deal if it's 1% off. Let's switch it off and let's try again.
And Jan or Jan has a question here about residents having to evacuate Boca Chica village. Sawyer, have the residents got any kind of notice yet? Do we know that?
Yes, we do know that they have indeed gotten the warning to clear out for the 17th for spaceflight activity. So the residents will be kept out of the keep out zone. You will have the road closures done by the sheriffs down there. They'll keep everyone out. There are also already publicly posted exclusion zones of where everyone will need to keep out, including on the waterways, where it's safe to watch, where it's not safe to watch. And that letter that was sent out, I believe, have the 17th during the window, but the potential to extend it if they don't go on the 17th to the 18th and the 19th.
And I've just seen in the queue here, somebody called Upper Level Winds has upgraded to become a Red Team member. Thank you very much for that. Talking about wind shear earlier with the potential to scrub the launch tomorrow. DNDM 101 is asking, Alex, when can we expect the chopsticks to move away from Ship 24 and Booster 7? They're kind of hugging the vehicle right now, aren't they?
Yeah, so for the wet dress rehearsal that they did in I think it was in January. Yeah, they opened the chopsticks way before the fueling began, so we should expect the same tomorrow. Because at one point, obviously, the rocket should go in between them, right? So they need to be open for the launch.
And I think I'll take this one next, about the re-entry of the ship on the other side of the launch near Hawaii. I'll go around the room with this one. I'll go back to you, Alex. Do you think that this says the flaps, but I'll extend the question to the entire ship. Do we think the ship will survive re-entry, Alex?
Oh boy. Yeah, I saw the OFT animation. Shout out to Ryan Henson, by the way. And yeah, it could. I mean, this is all new territory. I'm hopeful that it re-enters, but also at the same time, I gotta admit that this is the first time they try it, right? And so it will probably fail during re-entry. But yeah.
Sawyer, what do you think? Sawyer, are you here? Or are you
Yeah.
talking while
Sorry,
muted? There we go.
I'm here. Thank you. Sorry, I was taking a quick drink. I obviously, if it gets to that point, I don't know if the flaps will totally survive. Again, we already know for the next couple of ships at least that there are no flaps aboard, so maybe there's not full confidence in keeping them on board. But uh, I don't know. I would hope that they would survive. The big thing I think is going to be just seeing what happens to the heat shield itself. The flaps are kind of secondary in my books. I'm interested to see if it does get to that point, how the tough rock, how the tiles work, and again, just thinking back to shuttle, how the tile adhesive, as dumb as that sounds, how the tile adhesive works too.
Well, I will say that the flaps are kind of also important because if the flaps fail, the ship will go into some sort of weird attitude and then probably even face with a leeward side windward, and we don't want that, right? Because then it's facing the wrong way. The tiles need to work for reentry, but also the flaps. Both things need to be working because otherwise, it's just a mess, and it breaks up. You don't want to mess with aerodynamics, I guess.
You don't want to mess with the laws of physics. We have a few more people becoming Capcom members here, as well as some more store messages. Thanks to Fire Striker and Tommy, you now get access to the Discord server if that's something you're interested in. And we also have a few more super chats coming in here. Thank you, everybody who has been contributing.
I just want to point something out. So Capcom and above get access to the Discord, but Red Team and above get a special perk right now as well too. In addition to our stream right now and what you'll get to see on launch day tomorrow with our commentary, there is also a multi-view, as you see there on screen, that rotates through all the different cameras that we have out at Starbase, so that way you can see everything, almost everything that we're seeing here. So we've got 9 cameras per view. You can even get to see some of the cameras getting set up and before they're even used on the live stream. And of course, during the launch, all of our tracking cameras, you'll be able to see them right there. And that is only for Red Team and above. So that's it. And you'll get access in the member disc part of the site to this multi-view.
And it's 9 cameras.
9
Very
cameras?
Interesting indeed. There you go. You more cameras than you can look at
on each view. Because there's more than one view. It's multi-view. So it's 9 and 9.
Wow.
Yeah, you can see there the transition.
Yeah. That'd be a good name
there's
for it.
Many cameras.
We have a question here from Juan asking, was there any scrub due to high winds for the suborbital flight tests, or did it not matter for those altitudes? They're saying that they can't remember any. Alex, did we get any high wind scrubs for the just the hops?
I don't think there was any. I'm kind of trying to remember, but I don't think. I do know. I think it was on one of the hubs off the top of my head. I think there was one delay for winds, and we actually, I wasn't at NSF back then, but I was watching NSF, and the cameras were turned around, and we saw like balloons going up and things like that. They were launching balloons up in the air, so basically to measure the winds and things like that. And we're looking at that and trying to gauge, are they already with good data? Those were the days, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like we had no idea. But yeah.
And those only went up to about 12.5 kilometers at most, I believe. So it wasn't as high as this is obviously going to be going because this is going into space. So the only one I think I wish SN11 kind of did scrub due to weather so that you could see something through that crazy fog. But otherwise, no, I don't believe there was any other wind-related, upper-level wind-related delays.
Yeah.
And
And
was about to say that it is true that the launch here is going to be going into space and everything, but it is true also that those hubs were also going to the same levels of the upper level winds. They are around 10 to 12 kilometers, going a bit into the 15-kilometer range. So all of that is sort of the places of the upper level winds. Oh, who's zooming in? Ooh, look at that.
Ooh, look at this camera.
We're getting
It looks-
closer. We're getting closer. Ooh.
wonderful.
Could that be a new broadcast camera?
I don't know,
think
Sawyer,
so.
is
This-
it?
That looks new.
Spoiler, it is.
Wonderful shot there of looking up into the underneath of the chopsticks and the QD arm, the ship QD. May I add?
Can you tell that I'm not just geeking out about the flight, but also the technology we're using to capture
Yeah,
the flight and bring it to
yeah.
you? I love both, so I'm beyond excited for all this.
I'd also add for context on the hops question that they went up to, so converted to feet, that's around 35 to 45,000 feet. So that's kind of roughly where commercial airliners fly. So just for a bit of context there, how high that these hops actually went up to, and just how quickly they came back down again. I'm going to look through here for a few more questions, such as this one from Eric, asking, Sawyer, I'll throw this one to you. How quickly can SpaceX recycle tomorrow in case of an anomaly? I'm just going to quickly say now, if there's an anomaly that results in a loss of vehicle or a loss of like ground infrastructure, then it's probably going to take a little bit longer than within the same window.
Yeah, I'd say we're talking probably a couple months at that point having to rebuild stage 0, which of course we hope doesn't happen. So if they needed to recycle at any point in the count, as they're getting close to T0, I mean, there's a chance they could recycle same day and try again later in the 2.5 hour window. Or 3.5, sorry, in the window, brain not functioning. But in terms of trying again the next day, I think the biggest issue would be what caused the scrub or the delay in the first place. Is it something that they can fix same day, keeping in mind that they'll have to get all the fuel out of the tank, they'll have to neutralize the tanks, put them with the nitrogen, inert them, and then the people can go out and work on them if they need to get into certain parts, like, say, go manually work on the engines. And that will, I think, will be a huge factor. And the fact that they have a limited amount of propellants to load as well. We know that there is some backup in the suborbital tank farm, but how much fuel they load will also be an important factor. So again, it really depends on where it happens in the count, how much fuel you've loaded, and what exactly the anomaly is.
We also have a question here from Cartoon Club. Talking about the winds, what wind speed, Alex, do we think that it would be, or what speed of wind would be too high for the launch to go ahead? Talking about upper level winds and wind shear from earlier.
We truly don't have a clear answer there, but I could probably speak in the name of Falcon 9 here, because we do know that Falcon 9 is more susceptible for winds because it's very, very long and very, very thin. Whereas Starship, yes, it's very tall, but it is also very wide. And the fineness ratio that is called is lower on Starship than on Falcon 9. And that usually affects less the sort of the bending of the vehicle as it goes through different winds and things like that. So for Falcon 9, I believe the limit is about 21 miles per hour, I think. And so for Starship, is probably a little bit more. But again, remember, this is the first flight. So it's probably going to be conservative for this flight. And then for the upper level winds, I do know that, for example, upper level winds can be in the order of 100 knots, and that's sort of the the speeds that Falcon 9s have been flying in certain missions. But here, the concern that they have is not the wind, like the wind intensity, but the direction changing so fast. As you go up, you encounter different layers of the atmosphere, and so you don't want those winds to shift left and right, or whatever direction they're going too fast, because then that affects the trajectory of the rocket, and that's what you don't want to see, right? And hopefully all of that is clear for tomorrow.
Godzilla Master here is asking, is there going to be a countdown timer and timeline for the first orbital test flight, like Falcon Heavy's maiden flight? Now, Sawyer, I know we worked on a video not that long ago about timelines and things like that.
Exactly, yeah. So we will have our countdown timeline like you see right there on screen. You can expect all of that tomorrow. Again, at all times are approximate, assuming that everything goes as planned, but we will have a full countdown there as well. And if you want an idea of what that full countdown is going to be, as you mentioned, we just posted a video about it this week that goes through all of the major milestones that we will encounter. So yes, there is a full timeline that is expected up until T0, and if it gets beyond T0, anything after that is excitement guaranteed.
Indeed. Yeah.
Might need a little bit of a tweak, that timeline, but yeah.
Yeah, stuff is still work in progress up until the launch, everybody. So don't judge today's timeline for what's actually going to happen tomorrow. Sean is asking, what will the video coverage of the launch look like? Well, Alex, because we haven't seen a full stack launch in person before, but I do know that we're going to have many cameras looking at it ourselves.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of cameras. Again, you can sort of see all of these array of cameras on that multi-view that we're giving to members, red team or above. And yeah, certainly I will say that the close-up views are going to be very, very awesome for the filming, but I'm one of my concerns is that they're gonna be filled with dust as soon as those engines light up, because we've seen in the past that that dust kicks up, and yeah, we'll probably have to wait for Starship to just rise out of the dust to figure out if it's actually lifted off or not.
Yeah, I'm hoping SpaceX will have, like they do with Falcon, I'm sure they'll have some onboard cameras. They had them during the hop test, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see those again. But I think we will all need to take a moment of silence for the cameras that will be lost tomorrow, which there will be many still and video cameras who see their last launch when that thing lifts off.
Yep. Let's just say that we have basically we have a lot of things in store for you guys. We'll see.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll tease it.
We won't say everything, obviously. Yeah, let's just tease it. We won't show it up until it happens. I think it's worth it.
A question here from Bob asking, SpaceX says that the launch window opens at 7 o'clock in the morning. Is this the revised countdown here with the correct information? Looks like it. Anyway, back to Bob's question. They say the launch window starts at 7 a.m, but Cameron County website says the closure is from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So when could it launch? Now, I think two things may have gone wrong there. Either Cameron County's website, which I highly doubt is in universal time, or Cameron County website actually says from 12 a.m. till 2 p.m. So, Alex, what kind of closures are we expecting, and when will the vehicle actually launch?
Yeah, so the closure starts at 12 a.m. Central Time. Probably a typo from Bob. And so the reasoning why it is wider, like the road closure is wider than the launch window, is because prior to the launch window, they need to evacuate everything. They need to clear the launch pad. They need to make sure that no one is around the beach and things like that. They need to spool up the tank farm, which usually takes lots and lots of hours. We put on the timeline like an approximate time of 4 hours. It might be more. We'll see, because we're not really sure. We're kind of flying a little bit blind in that time, but probably on the order of 4 to 5 hours. It's gonna be all that spool up of the tank farm, and as it spools up, conditioning all the fluids and everything, it's gonna take a long time. until they actually load propellants. Loading of the propellants is going to be even before the launch window happens. So the road closure needs to be already in effect. People need to be cleared, because loading propellants is very dangerous, right? And we've seen in the past certain rockets have not gone well when loading propellants. AMO6, right? Right, the whole thing needs to be cleared out as they spool up the tank farm, they condition everything, and they go into the propellant load sequence, because it's a very dangerous part of the process. And just because the liftoff is no earlier at least than 7 a.m. Central, the road closure needs to begin way before that. And well, the launch window closes at 9:30 a.m. Central, but the reason why they need it all the way to 2 p.m. is because say it scrubs, knock on wood, it doesn't, right? But let's suppose it does, and it does so at an attempt that is at 9:30 a.m. It's gonna need probably like in the order of 2 to 3 hours to detank, to save the vehicles and everything. It's gonna reach about 12:31 p.m. more or less, maybe even more. So that 2 p.m. already covers for that detanking, that process of saving the vehicle for people to approach and obviously open the road. So that is something that we will be looking in that case. Again, let's hope it doesn't, but we have to be prepared for that, obviously, and the road closures needs to be prepared as well.
Now, we've got a lot of more support coming in over the last few minutes, which I'm going to try and rattle through. But whilst I show them on the screen, we have a question here from Mac Sawyer at the weather station. I'll throw this over to you. What's the visibility going to be like at the time of launch?
That's a good question. According to the National Weather Service and NOAA and weather.gov, it seems like everything should be relatively clear. I mean, there's always the concern of certain fog and things like that early in the morning, being right near the Gulf, that the sun will typically burn off. But given the launch time, the launch window opening at 7 Central Time, there's a very good chance it will be clear enough that we should get a gorgeous view of the launch. Back to you, Ryan.
Sounds good, Sawyer. And Darren asking, if everything goes well, and they believe that it will, when are we likely to see the next test flight of Starship, Alex? When should we see OFT number 2?
My personal guess is gonna be after the summer, like early fall timeframe, more or less, like maybe September, October. There's definitely probably a chance that the third one is sort of like December or something like that, because once they launch the first, once they launch the second, the third is probably coming a little bit more closer in time, right? Because they start getting more experience, they start getting less, needing less time to prepare everything for the next launch. So every single time that they do that, it's gonna be less and less time. So I'm thinking for the next launch, it's gonna be after the summer, because this summer is gonna be all about the pad, preparing it. We think they might be doing deluge system stuff there, and testing Booster 9, Ship 26, which now we believe it's gonna be the next ship in line instead of Ship 25. So yeah, they're gonna have to test the vehicles. The systems will need to be refurbished, because that first launch is probably gonna damage things here and there. Hopefully not too much, but there's probably gonna be some damage, and whatever damage it causes, there's gonna be some repairs, some changes, normal stuff. We see that with other vehicles as well.
Alex, I'll also throw this one to you. Have we seen Elon Musk, SpaceX CEO, in Boca Chica just yet? We're less than a day till the launch now, so.
Well, he must be there, I guess, but I haven't personally seen him.
Don't know if he's been spotted wandering around Starbase or anything like that. We also Brian here saying that we need to charge our batteries, referring to the multi-view. I can assure you that all batteries will be charged in preparation for tomorrow. Do not fear. We have Simon, this is a good question. This is regulatory question. Will tomorrow's hopefully launch count as one of the 5 orbital flights a year that the that SpaceX's license essentially allows them to perform. Now, Sawyer, we know this isn't really an orbital launch, but it is going like the majority of the way around the Earth. So does it count as an orbital launch, do you think, in terms of this license, kind of?
You really want to open the can of worms there, huh? Um,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, because again, it is not going to do a complete orbit. It will still reach space. Its apogee will definitely be high enough that it reaches space, the highest point of its orbit. But I think just, again, the environmental side and all of the regulatory hoops that we had to basically jump through to get to this point, I think that this will have to count. If it's lifting off, if it's, lighting the engines, lifting off, clearing the tower, and flying above, I think at that point they will count it as a flight, even if it doesn't do a complete and full orbit. So yes, my vote is yes.
Yeah, the programmatic environmental assessment from the FAA and SpaceX that shows launches of Super Heavy, launches of Starship, and then Starship Super Heavy. It counts them as orbital. We know it's not fully orbital, but they are counted as orbital because it's the full stack configuration, and those is what they have. It's quote unquote a limit, but as I've told many times before, this limit can actually be changed. And I have some thread from like last year of showing how Falcon 9 initially was only allowed to launch, well, allowed by its environmental assessment for Slick 40, it was only allowed like 6 times a year. So, and we know it's launched many more times this year than 6 times from that pad, even more from all of the other pads. Right now, I believe it is 70 times from all of the Florida launch sites. So, yeah, it can be changed. It's not something that stays, fixed all the time. You can change it.
Makes sense. We have I'm looking at the list here. We have so many new members, which is fantastic, but it means we've got to go through all of them and thank everybody. So, Alive in Austin just become a Red Team member. That means you get access to the exclusive multi-view for Red Team members and above. We also have Robert becoming a Launch Director member. That means you get your name at the end of the show. So another Red Team member here, thank you very much. A Capcom member, if you're Capcom or above, you get access to the Discord. We have some more members coming in here. A Launch Director from Qualme. Sorry if I got that wrong, but that's a very high tier of support. Thank you very much for that. We have a few more store messages coming in, and many people swooping up the pre-order of the plushie, the patch as well, whilst they can. So if you're interested in one of them, you know where to go. shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Christopher wishing luck to the SpaceX team. We also have Tina becoming a Launch Director member, and a couple more Red Team members here. Again, Red Team and above, you get access to the multi-view. Capcom and above, you get access to the Discord. And a few more store messages coming in here. Thank you very much, Martin, for your multiple purchases on the store, including that, of course, I still lie here rug there. We also have Logan becoming a Capcom member. A few more Red Team members here. So thank you, everybody who has decided to join the member program. And we also have quite a substantial contribution here from Cheetah X, before I forget. €100. Thank you very much for that. Adding to the Lost Camera Fund in case we lose anything in the line of fire or Super Heavy. But yeah, thank you to everyone who has been contributing to the channel. It goes a long way, and it is greatly appreciated from every single one of us here to keep the content flowing.
If I can add on to that, again, that is extremely, extremely generous. Cheetah X, thank you so very much. And honestly, to everyone who gives us the support, but it's, help like that allows us to add these brand new cameras, allows us to add this multi-view that we can bring to Red Team and above, to all of these things. And honestly, even if you don't help monetarily, just watching the video, commenting, and especially liking, I know you hear everyone say that all the time in the YouTube videos, but legitimately, it tells the YouTube algorithm, hey, people like this. Maybe other people will like it too, and that's how we get more people hooked on spaceflight. So thank you everyone for that.
Very well said, Sawyer. We have a question here from Cooper about the launch license. Did the FAA document about the launch license say anything about what the environmental concern was? Now, Alex, speaking of the launch license, did we get any information about that?
Oh yeah, so it was not an environmental concern per se. It was more like, hey, this deviates a little bit from what we covered on that programmatic environmental assessment. So let's do a review. Let's make sure, that everything is in check and that it actually fits within those parameters that we studied on that environmental assessment. And what the document says is, yes, it's all within parameters. Everything it's okay, right? And that's sort of what they really want to do with these things, is because you don't want anyone else, be like, hey, you have this thing that is not in, and for legal reasons they need to do this in order to ensure that no one can came later and be like, oh, you did this illegally or not within the bounds of all your studies or whatever. So it might seem like, oh, it's just red tape, it's more paperwork, but it's paperwork that is to ensure that, no one else can then complain and be like, I'm gonna file a lawsuit or something. We don't want that, right? And SpaceX is the first one that doesn't want that to happen. They were actually the ones performing all of these studies on the impact of, for example, Ship 24 impacting the ocean as after the reentry. If it survives reentry, it will impact the ocean horizontally. They were doing studies on what is going to break, where is it going to be breaking, what it's going to be exploding, right? It's like that kind of stuff. And based on that, how it's going to affect marine life, how it's going to be the sound, all those studies, they were performing that precisely to ensure that they can hand that over to the FAA, sign it off, and be like, yes, so this is within the bounds of what we already did in 2022, because otherwise legal stuff happens.
We've got a load more memberships coming in. Many people upgrading or joining Red Team. Thank you, everybody, ever since we showcased the multi-view. Again, if you want to see that multi-view on launch day, Red Team and above, that's where you get it. So I'm just going to quickly toggle through everyone who's become a Red Team member, because the list is incredibly long. So thank you to everybody. We don't have time to read everybody out. If not, we would be here until after T0 tomorrow. And I'm sure we want to get to some questions and actually talk about the launch. But of course, thank you so much to everybody who is deciding to join the member program. It's a very good recurring way to financially support. And of course, as Sawyer said, just watching, liking, commenting, everyone says it, but it does genuinely go a long way. And of course, thank you to everyone who's gifting memberships, not only having a membership yourself, but also giving other people who may not be able to afford a membership access to that incredible multi-view that we have running for Red Team and above. So thank you to Jim and PN for gifting memberships, and also to We Will Rocket You, 5 Red Team memberships there. Thank you so much. And I'm seeing if we have any more gifted memberships here. We have many people upgrading, joining Red Team. So thank you very much to everybody who has upgraded, joined, gifted. It goes a long way. And it also gives many other people access to that multi-view there. And we also have NASA Fan becoming a Launch Director member. Thank you very much for that. That is one of the highest tiers. It also means you'll get to see your name at the end of the show. We have a question. Go on, Alex.
I was gonna say, because today I got tagged, like yesterday or today, I don't remember well, of people on Twitter and all the social media being like, I want to support, but I don't have for the merch and the memberships and things like that. If you cannot contribute in that way, it's okay. Not everyone can. You can basically show your support by liking, subscribing, all that stuff, sharing with other people. Because this is all at the same time sharing about spaceflight, this exciting adventure that we're living right now, this moment of history in spaceflight, and definitely we'll be here to cover it. And it is appreciated, all of your support in whatever way you give us that support. So don't hesitate to do that. I think we are at about almost 700,000 subscribers. So if you like all of what we do, definitely consider subscribing and sharing with other people, because this is history in the making, guys.
Exactly. We have a question here from Jake. Alex, I'll throw this one to you. Last night on Starbase Live, we saw some projectors like getting mapped onto the back of the Mega Bay, officially High Bay 2. What do we think SpaceX are actually going to put on there? Is it just going to be like some kind of fancy fireworks display during the launch, or what are we talking about?
I think they already have their own fireworks display for the launch.
Yeah.
It could be for an after launch party or something like that. We truly don't know.
I mean, that's the shot that we saw the light show. So on the biggest building there in the middle, it was getting projected onto the back. They were just kind of like showing the logo. There was a cat at one point. That was a bit weird. I don't know how that's related at all, but they're probably just throwing some kind of test imagery up there.
Just saying, post-launch parties are not unheard of. After STS-135, Jimmy Buffett played a solo set inside the vehicle assembly building. Just saying, that was awesome to watch. And yes, I did get to hear it. It was fantastic.
Especially with those acoustics, it's like the biggest single-story structure in the world. So, do you know if the door was open, Sawyer?
Yeah. Well, not the
Okay.
big doors, but the one where they load gear into it.
Oh, yeah. Question here from John about engine out capabilities of the Super Heavy booster. So there's 33 under there. There's 33 Raptor 2s. The outer ring can't gimble. The inner ring can. Alex, do we know how many of those Raptor 2s we can lose before an orbital velocity cannot be achieved?
Yeah, so we kind of know from Elon that at least 2, it's okay. If they lose 2, that's still okay to go into orbit, or in this case, the almost orbit trajectory that they're reaching on this flight. But it might be true also that maybe if they lose like another 2 closer to booster shutdown, they probably all can also go into orbit with that, because it has so many engines. For example, I made once the sort of back of napkin calculation that if Falcon 9 can go into orbit with 1 engine less, and it has 9 engines, so that probably means you could probably lose like 1/9 of all the engines on Super Heavy and still get into orbit. And Falcon 9, even under certain circumstances, you can go to orbit with just 2 engines out, especially if the 2 engines go out like close to Miko or something like that. So you probably are, maybe up to 4 engines on Super Heavy can go out and still go into orbit, and perhaps even up to 5 depending on the moment it happens. Hopefully, though, that never happens, and we go with all 33 all the way, because we don't want any issues in that sense. But if they do happen, well, just it's a test. It's why we test. Trademark.
Yeah, one of the
Nice.
rough numbers I heard was about 5 would probably be the max that they could lose. But again, that's a rough number that I've heard.
There's a question here from Clinton asking, do you think they could be using the laser projectors for a countdown clock like the Kennedy Space Center press site has? And I'm also just going to add that I'm being told in the back channel by Kevin that they were that SpaceX were throwing lasers onto the booster and ship as well. I'm not sure if that meant the booster and the ship on the pad or in the rocket garden, but that is Sawyer, what do we think? Potential countdown clock?
I personally don't think so. I mean, yeah, they'll have. There's going to be a lot of people there watching and listening. There is media staging areas, but I don't think you need a projected countdown clock onto things. It may have been just for fun, for show. It could be something that eventually could be used for engineering check if they bring the drone out and want to pinpoint something in particular. But I don't think that it's countdown clock. I think it's just a little fun, loosen things up, and say, all right, yes, we're going into a big serious test. The whole world is watching, but take a breath. Remember, we're all together. We're doing this as a team. This is a test flight, and now let's give it our all.
Very quickly before we get into the next set of questions that we have in the queue here. Again, if you have a question for us and you want it answered before launch day, you only really have a few hours left to ask. And whilst we're live, you might as well put it in chat. Tag us at NASASpaceflight. We'll put it in the queue and we'll do our best at trying to answer it. But first, I'm going to run through as many different bits of contribution as possible. I'm not kidding you when I say there is I've only been hosting for like 4 or 5 days, but there is more comments and store messages and memberships and super chats and anything along those lines than I've ever seen before. The amount of kindness being sent in from every single person who I'm about to show on screen is absolutely ridiculous. And thank you so much to every single person who's decided to become a Red Team member, like Meredith. That means you get access to the multi-view. Tommy becoming a Launch Director member. That means you get your name at the end of NSF Live. We also have some store messages coming in here, as well as the patch has been restocked a few days ago. We also have the plushies available for pre-order. They've highly anticipated plushies. We also have John becoming a Capcom member. That means you get access to the Discord. More store messages. Go NSF, go SpaceX, go Starship. We're definitely going to be reiterating that go Starship message if it does launch tomorrow. And a few more super chats coming in here. £20 from UK Hudson. Thank you very much for that. And some more store messages coming in here. Nate and Nicholas both purchasing multiple items off the store. Thank you very much for those. I can see a plushie in there as well. Juan's become a Capcom member. And I also want to hit some very large contributions we have here. We have I Am Jaded Hobo gifting a €300 tip there. That is a big contribution through the tips.nasaspaceflight.com page. That's a bit more of a more direct way to support the channel. So thank you so much. I'm gonna assume your name is Jade for that big contribution. There you go. Tips.nasaspaceflight.com, a more direct way to support the channel. That is a huge contribution. Thank you so much for that.
Really kind. Wow.
There, yeah, very, very kind indeed. That is going to go a long way in helping to keep the teams down in Starbase, as you say, filled with coffee, and probably some more bug spray as well to repel the mosquitoes down in South Texas.
It's amazing.
Feed the humans and feed the robots.
Feed the humans and feed the robots.
Horse cam, as Crispy calls it.
Yes. I'm just going to quickly run through some more of these store messages and the like. Again, sorry we can't read out every single one of them. There are so many people joining Red Team and above. It's incredible to see. Yeah, there's so much support right now. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you, Chad, Launch Director. You get your name in the show. We also have an upgrade to Red Team. So many people joining Red Team. Thank you to every single person. And of course, if you're just joining us and you were not aware already, the multi-view with all the different cameras, all the different Starbase live cameras and more pointing at Starship for tomorrow's orbital flight test. Those can all be seen at the same time on our Red Team members and above exclusive multi-view. You can see that there. A few cameras are not online yet, but they will be coming online as we get towards T0. You can also see the cameras getting set up on there, and there may be some cameras getting that will be available on that multi-view before they're even available on the broadcast or Starbase Live. So if you are interested in being able to see those live views, that is Red Team or above in the YouTube membership program. Again, oh my day, there are so many people upgrading, joining, gifting Red Team memberships. Thank you so much to everybody. I feel like it gets extremely repetitive to keep reading all of these names out, and I don't want to bore people, but it is absolutely incredible to see the amount of support that we are being gifted at the moment. I've got through, I don't know, like 40 or 50 messages so far in the last few moments alone, so I'm going to take a quick pause for a moment to get to some more questions, but we will certainly be returning to that kind contribution in the not too distant future. Speaking of questions, I'm going to take this one from Bunker the Husky. Alex, I'll throw it to you. Do they have to wait until the launch window opens to begin fueling? What are the what are the restrictions around fueling Starship?
No, they can start fueling before the launch window. So the launch window, what it means is that the earliest launch opportunity, but fueling begins way earlier. It begins 1 hour and 39 minutes before that. So we should be expecting fueling to begin way before that launch window begins. It's just basically the earliest T0 for that launch, not the earliest that they can do stuff. That's why we explained before they have a longer, more wider road closure so that they can do all of these hazardous operations during that road closure. So for example, fueling, also the spooling up the tank farm, everything like that. And if they were to scrub, again, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but if it does, they need to take into account that. And so it also extends after the launch window closes all the way to 2 p.m. so that if they need to detank the vehicle, save the vehicle and everything, so that people can then go up to the pad safely and cross, through the road and everything without any sort of issue.
There's another question here. Flawed Perspective is saying, sorry to re-ask. There's no problem with re-asking a question because viewers are coming and going all the time, and we want to make sure that the most amount of people know the most amount of information. How long can B7/S24 stay in replenish mode in case of a hold? Now, Sawyer, we know the window is only just over a couple of hours long, but do we know how long the methane and liquid oxygen can keep flowing in and replenishing around the ship and booster on launch day?
They'll definitely have enough that they'll be able to continue keeping it replenished, topping it off to replace whatever is vented out or burns off from the temperature based off of what they have in the tank farm. So for the whole 2.5-hour window and for the hour and a half before the window itself when they start the fueling, they know they have enough fuel that they can load it up, replenish, keep it going until the end of the window. Beyond that, it's very likely that they would start detanking if there is a scrub, some of which can be replenished and used again, and if not, they will just keep topping it off and trying again each flight.
And you can see the live weather there, 25 Celsius down at Starbase. The wind's kind of similar to how they were about an hour ago, about 14 miles per hour, gusts up to 30. And the pressure around kind of the standard atmospheric pressure that we would expect. Very humid as well, over 50% humidity down at Starbase. And if you have a question at NASASpaceflight in chat, we'll get it into the queue. This question here from Oshawks, I'm going to guess that's how to pronounce your name. Sorry if I got that incorrect. Can you go over what will happen during tomorrow's launch if all goes as expected? Now, Alex, SpaceX have published a timeline for us to look at. What can we expect or what can we expect after T0 if the launch does indeed go ahead tomorrow, as we hope it does?
Yeah, so we'll see that engine ignition lift off. As it lifts off, it will head to the east, go over the Gulf of Mexico. Around 55 seconds, the rocket will be already supersonic and going through max Q. Booster engine cutoff is going to be around 2 minutes and 49 seconds. That should be around 60 to 70 kilometers in altitude, almost in space. It'll coast all the way to space eventually. I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, we'll see that never proven before stage separation system with the kick and everything that they're going to be doing. Super Heavy will be coming back doing a boost back burn that should last about 55 seconds, and as you can see that there in the graphic, it will perform a landing on the Gulf of Mexico about 31 kilometers off the coast of Starbase, and it'll do its boost back burn, it'll re-enter. Unlike Falcon 9, it will not be doing a re-entry burn. It will go through re-entry because it's designed for that without a burn, and then it'll do its landing burn about 23 seconds in duration, and hopefully we'll see it in one piece reaching the ground. However, SpaceX is not planning to do any sort of recovery for Booster 7. And what is all those vehicles going down to the pad? That is a lot.
I do not know. It looks like is that Elon's convoy heading down to the pad? Yeah, I'm not sure what that could be. I'm just running through on screen now all of the Red Team memberships we're getting, and thank you, Chad, for gifting 20 Red Team memberships as well. We're getting so much support, so sorry we can't read them out. I will just over time just be putting them onto screen for everybody to see. But I'm going to go over to this question now from Witty Username. That's a very witty username, if I do say so myself. How is Starship going to handle the high G-forces during re-entry due to its size? And does it have some sort of lift vector like the Apollo capsules had? Sawyer, what do we know about lift physics?
Well, when it comes to... Are we talking about the ship or the booster in particular?
I think the ship.
Because the ship, it's a little bit different. I mean, it still has that curved surface like you're used to seeing with a typical heat shield on something like the Apollo capsules, like you mentioned, or on the new Orion capsule. But this one, again, it's doing it slightly different in that it's almost like a combination between Shuttle and Apollo in that way, in that you still have the belly flop kind of into the atmosphere, exactly like Shuttle did. Let those darker, tougher heat shield tiles take the majority of the heat, majority of the friction and everything that slows you down, and then eventually it'll be able to do that flip maneuver right itself and land, at least planned in the future. So it will have some, I believe, but most of it is going to be, again, that mix of gliding through the atmosphere shuttle style, more so getting a little bit of lift vector from that, and then continuing down, eventually righting itself for landing. So it will be able to handle that, and that's part of the way it's designed in having to do the flip.
I just want to say quickly, Mike with a $50 tip, tips.nasaspaceflight.com. Thank you very much for that. Another big contribution to the team, and I will reassure you that that will go a long way in helping to keep the robots and humans working down in Starbase for us fed, bringing you this live coverage every single day. I'm just going to look through for a few more questions here. Do we have a question here from Omar about our cameras, which I'll just plug it again. Red Team memberships, you get the multi-view, you can see them all at the same time. Do you think your cameras will be able to see Super Heavy landing in the Gulf, assuming everything goes well? So, Alex, you were talking about the timeline earlier. Roughly, how far away do you think the booster will be going in, and do you think we'll be able to see it from the shoreline?
It being about 31 kilometers downrange, it's probably gonna be below the horizon from our vantage point. Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, unfortunately, our NASA spaceflight satellite isn't up and running yet, so
Yeah.
I don't think, again, like you mentioned with the horizon, the curvature of the Earth, it's possible, but it might be difficult. Again, the only indicator that we might get would be a potential of that last burn.
We have a question here about 7 a.m. tomorrow, Central Time. Does the launch window at 7 a.m. mean the launch could happen at 7 a.m., Sawyer? Or does that mean the pad is going to be cleared at 7 a.m.?
That means they can ignite the engines and get off the pad exactly at 7 Central Time. In fact, the pad will be cleared, according to SpaceX's timeline, hours before that, with the fueling, as Alex was mentioning, scheduled to start about an hour 39 before liftoff. So the whole go, no-go for propellant load is at T-minus 2 hours. At that point, the pad is clear, everyone should be gone, so that way once they start loading in those supercooled propellants, everyone is cleared and away from it. So that is the actual potential liftoff time.
Yeah, when it says launch window, it refers to the window in time where they can actually lift off. So before that, you already have to be fueled and everything. So all the closures and everything have to account for that, and pad clearing obviously has to account for that as well.
Yeah, so that means you can ignite your engines in this case at 6:59:53 a.m. and then lift off at 7.
We have a few more questions here about what we'll be able to see and things along those lines. Beckwee, sorry if I got that wrong. Any chance of seeing it from the Tampa area? So, Alex, do we think we'll be able to see either the booster or the ship from the Gulf Coast of Florida?
I'd say it's probably gonna be a little bit complicated, but definitely worth trying. If I were living there, I will try at least to figure that out, if I can see it or not. It's the first launch, so now it's the time to actually figure out if, downrange places can see these launches, because we've seen many launches from Florida. We've seen, going up the east coast of the United States. We've seen them, go southeast, and for Starlinks, for polar launches and things like that. So we already know how all of that looks like. From here, this is the first time, so now it's the time when we're actually gonna figure it out. How is that gonna be looking on other places? Because Starbase, it's nearby, but then downrange places might be able to see like imagine, for example, a twilight effect, and you are, for example, I don't know, like in the Mexico side, or more to the north of Texas, like the north of the Gulf of Mexico. That could be awesome to see the sideways launch, like from the side, a launch with jellyfish effect and things like that. It will be awesome.
Don't tease me.
So now it's the time when we actually have to figure that out. So we're going into unknown territory, but it's awesome territory. It's like, yes, let's step in right into it.
And a question here from John asking, when will NSF's coverage start? Well, you should expect some live feeds with commentary starting around midnight Central. But of course, as always, Starbase Live is available 24/7. It doesn't always have commentary. We have Raptor every so often, but it is an uncommentated 24/7 live broadcast of a selected range of cameras that we have down in Starbase. So at any time, you can just click onto there and see what the SpaceX teams are up to. Yes, commentated coverage will begin at midnight Central Time tomorrow on Monday. I'm just going to look through here for some more questions, such as this one from Diff asking, if staging occurs and Starship does not ignite its engines, how far down range, Alex, I'll throw this one to you, how far down range would Starship land, or would the FTS be activated in this situation to kind of make the bits re-entering the atmosphere smaller already?
It probably depends on where Starship ends up going, because the FTS on Starship is just like on Falcon 9. It is automated. It is autonomous flight termination system. So the onboard vehicle computers are going to be like, okay, well, I'm deviating from my path while I'm going down, because it's going to be going down in that case. If it deviates outside of the hazard zones, then it's probably going to activate that FTS, right? As for how far down range, it's probably going to be somewhere around 600 to 700, maybe 800 kilometers, not too farther down range than that, I think. So yeah, it's probably going to be sort of like the first stage of Falcon 9 also goes down range about 600, 700 kilometers down range. I think Super Heavy and Starship both, because they use methane, they are more efficient. They have a little bit more thrust to weight ratio anyways, so all of that probably means that it's going to go downrange further away than Falcon 9, but not by that much.
Sounds good. We have a question here, Alex, I'll throw this to you as well. Better Luck Next Crime, interesting name. What happened to the stabilization arms that were used to hold the booster on the quick disconnect arm?
Oh, they removed that. We believe that it's probably because they figured out that they don't need it, because they were probably having more problems with that than solutions it gave, most likely.
Yeah, they took the training wheels off.
Yeah, very good way to put that, Sawyer. I'm going to run through a few more store messages here. We have I've said it before, I'll say it again. We have gotten so much contribution financially this afternoon. It is absolutely incredible to see. So again, sorry we can't read out every single message we're getting, but thank you to every single person who has been on the store, is gifting Red Team memberships, has upgraded to Red Team, is becoming a Red Team member, or any other membership level, of course. Again, Red Team member and above, access to the multi-view, Capcom and above, such as Iceblade here. That means you get access to the Discord server. We also have an Adam here becoming a Red Team member, Jim gifting 10 Red Team memberships, Zach upgrading, and a big tip here from John. Thank you very much. From over on tips.nasaspaceflight.com, a bit more of a direct way to support us. Besides electric thrust vectoring, what other upgrades have been put onto Raptor 2? And I'll throw this one to you, Alex. What are we expecting any upgrades beyond Raptor 2? Have we got any hints from Elon what could possibly be going on to the Raptors next?
Oh well, Elon did mention to Tim Dodd on one of these interviews that he gave him. He was saying things like remove flanges on the Raptor interfaces, like on certain places of the engines when they come together, all these pipes and everything. There are flanges. They want to remove that for simplicity, both on manufacturing and also on basically inspecting the engines and things like that. Make it easier, because every flange that you have, that is a seal that you need to have there. If instead it's like a weld, you don't have a seal there. It's just welded, right? Whereas if you have a seal, it can leak, it can do stuff like that, and you don't want that, right? So if you remove the flanges, it makes it much simpler, much more reliable. But also you need to modify here and there the manufacturing methods. You need to modify things around that, and so it's not an upgrade that it's probably not going to be like, yeah, from one day to the other, Raptors suddenly don't have flanges. They're probably gonna go through an interim where there's like less flanges, and then eventually most of them are gonna be removed, if not all.
And we have a question here from Adam asking that. So they're asking they'll be out of school at 3 in the afternoon, British summer time. So that's 2 p.m. UTC. Take off 6, so that'll be 10 a.m. Central Time. Do we think that Starship could have launched by then? Sawyer, I'll go to you first on this one, and then I'll go to Alex. Do we think that Starship is going to be going kind of at the start of the window, or do we think that it could be possibly held to the middle or even the end of the window because of various different technical glitches or weather at the weather station?
I mean, when it comes to launch windows, 99.999% of the time, launch providers want to go at the top of the window. While it's typically more efficient to go in the middle of the window if you're targeting a specific orbit, which this one isn't, but if that's the case, it's usually most efficient, but they still try and target the beginning of the window for that exact reason, that if there is something that goes wrong, if there's a little scrub or whatever the case is, or they need to reset the count, you've got plenty of time to do it again. So it leaves the potential for it, but I don't know. It's all going to depend on if the rocket works or not. And the other concern being that the window is only 150 minutes, which I say only, but still, it's 150 minutes.
Alex, what do you think? When do you think it'll go?
I think it'll go when it goes. My thing is that
that's the cheat answer. That's the cheat answer. That doesn't count, Alex.
I know. What I do think though is they're probably going to be delaying everything until they actually are sure that it can go for it, because the length of the launch window doesn't really give them too much options for a recycle. So when they go for fueling, they go for it. And if they are not ready or they have any issues, even for example for the weather, they're not going to be going into that, because it wouldn't make sense, right? Like, why would you go if you're not fully ready, or if there's any sort of thing? And like, you could probably go and be like, okay, well, in the hour and a half that it takes for fueling, I'm gonna figure it out. But if you have that extra time, that 2.5 hours of the window, that gives you a little bit more leeway to solve any issues. And especially in the case of tomorrow, they're looking at upper level winds. They can go through different times where they actually be like, ooh, at this time of the window, upper level winds are better, right? That wind shear, it's going to be different. It's going to be much better for our vehicles, so we're going to launch at that time. And this brings me memories back to Falcon Heavy, because they actually had the same issue. They had, I think it was like a 3-hour window, or also 2.5 or something like that, around the same time. Yeah, 3-hour window. And they kept shifting because there were concerns of the upper level winds, until they basically targeted 15 minutes before the end of the window, because they were like, now it is when we're looking at the upper level winds that are going to be best for a launch, and so we're going to target that. That could be the case tomorrow, that they go through the window. And again, I mentioned this yesterday and someone called me, oh, you're so negative. I'm just telling you how it is, because I'm not trying to be negative. On the contrary, I wish that it was like at 7 a.m. and it went without a hitch or anything. But we got to talk about everything, right? The good and the bad, because we got to tell people how to be prepared for these things. And that is a possibility. And definitely that will be good, because they will be basically launching on the first day, and basically guaranteeing that they launch on that first day by just shifting a little bit and finding that good slot of weather on that first attempt. So again, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because they will be launching on that first day instead of a scrubbing, because that's worse, right? We don't want scrubs. We want the thing to launch, and they could launch if they find that weather at another time.
Very quick aside, I was at that launch attempt for Falcon Heavy for the demo flight at the press site, and I can tell you every time it kept getting pushed and pushed, by the end we're like, all right, we're getting ready to pack up probably. We're going to wait for them to call the scrub because they're targeting the end of the window. And sure enough, they took the end of the window and it went, which surprised the heck out of all of us. So I'm hoping the team that's down there at Starbase gets that same experience. If it doesn't go at the top of the window, I should say.
Indeed.
And I'm going to do the thing, everyone. We have over 10,000 of you watching right now. Quickly, though, I'm just going to say over nearly 15,000 of you have voted in the poll that was put out. Launch Monday. 77% of people are saying yes, 23% saying no. So that's kind of how optimistic the audience is at the moment. But with over 10,000 of you watching right now, I'm gonna do the thing, and I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna regret this in about 30 seconds, but I'm gonna ask you where you're all watching from. Most people already knew what I was gonna say, so they've started flooding chat already, which is very funny.
They have experience already. They are experienced.
And here it
Plus, from
goes.
Norwich.
Sorry, moderators.
Sweden.
There's
bunch
a
of Orlando.
across.
Bunch of Orlando. Hopefully,
Oh,
get a Falcon
many
Heavy.
Orlandos
People
as
from
well.
Spain. Is anyone watching from Spain? Come on. Where are
We've
got some-
my neighbors?
I see
We've
people
got a
in
few-
Germany, and it can't be Adrian then.
Yeah, I've seen a couple
Yeah.
UKs in there, a few more UKs, and no Spains yet, though, Alex, I'm afraid.
Jeez.
Oh, there's a Spain.
Well,
There's a Spain.
Argentina. Someone speaking Spanish at least. Oh, there we go. Spain, yeah.
New Zealand, all right.
Got some Canadians in here as well. We've got someone saying they're watching from Mars. I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that I slightly doubt that, unless you're watching from the
be the
Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport.
Yeah, come on, that's where they're from.
Yeah, there you go. You're watching it from Wallops. I got another Germany, another
Someone
Poland.
from York named
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Crispy, I think.
Oh, I've never heard of him before.
Yeah.
Some more people from a very European-dominated stream, a very European-dominated audience, rather.
Well,
this
it's
afternoon.
the final countdown, so it needs to be just basically Europe, right?
Oh my gosh. How come you're making the puns this time and not me?
He's taken your Steam, Sawyer.
But it's a
Yeah.
good one. It's actually not a bad one. You gotta recognize
No,
it.
game recognizes game.
Someone's saying they're from Pluto. Again, I'm gonna have to doubt that, I'm afraid. We've got an Australian in. We've got some people watching from the Caribbean.
Upstate New
and,
York, seeing the love there. That's where I went to school.
We've got a few more some people from South Africa in there. It looks like we've got someone else from Yorkshire in the UK. So we've got some friends for Chris. But
I
yeah, good
appreciate
to
the
see
person
we've
who
got
put Old Jersey instead of
a.
New
Yeah.
There we go.
yeah,
A lot of
so-
people from Spain. There we
There
go.
we go. We've got a very diverse audience this afternoon, so it's great
Love
to see
it.
everybody tuning in. I'm going
It's
to hit
awesome.
a couple more questions here
Yes.
quickly. Ica Gamers is asking, Sawyer, I don't know if we'll be able to relate this to any other kind of heavy lift vehicles, but how do we know how loud Starship is predicted to be at the point of liftoff?
I think it's going to depend a lot on where you are as well in the surrounding area. I believe for Saturn V, it was around the range of 110 to 115 decibels. I know someone had a decibel meter out for SLS, and I think the number hit close to 120, although Chris G was next to it, so that may have been his screaming, but I believe it was about 110, 115 decibels. So keeping in mind that this is even more powerful, I wouldn't be surprised to see somewhere like 125, 130 decibel range. We're talking, louder than being near a 747. So
Yeah, sadly
loud
here
indeed.
we don't have the VUV screech, but once they start launching from Florida, hopefully we're gonna hear that.
That'll be a very interesting VAB screech of 33 Raptors. Basically, the audio reflecting off of that massive building. I'm just going to run through a few more of these contributions we've been getting. Thank you so much to everybody. I like this message from the store saying, "'Twas the night before the OFT." It is the night before the OFT, indeed. and many different people buying off the store. I can see there that you got a plushie, and for those of you who didn't know, we have the plushie finally available for pre-order on shop.nasaspaceflight.com if you're interested in that. So that is available for you to pre-order right now on the store, limited edition. So if you want to get the full stack version of the plushie, we had a plushie around a couple of years ago, but this is a full stack ready to go. Pre-order available twas the night before the OFT. So if you'd like to get your hands on one of them, you certainly can. Shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And of course, we have all of the other items, including the patch, the very popular patch that was restocked just a few days ago. So make sure you get your hands on one of them. These are, well, at least the patch is kind of, it's an OFT dedicated item. So make sure to get your hands on one of them.
Blush, by the way, I just want to point out.
Test.
I gotta point out because it's so cool. The two of them Velcro, so you could take them apart and do flip maneuver and boost backs with them. So
there you go. Yes, another reason for you to get a plushie at shop.nasaspaceflight.com.
I do know a lot of people when we released the first plushie, they used it actually as pet toys. So now it will be cool for you to actually get two, because then you can get one for your pet and one for yourself. Because a lot of people were like, I gave my plushie to my pet and now I want another one, and they sold out. It's like, well, now it's your time to actually get two in case your pet grabs your plushie as a toy. 'Cause now it's a time.
Just running through a few more of these memberships, super chats, and the like very quickly. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting throughout the stream this afternoon whilst we've been looking at our live views of Starbase, and of course to everybody who's been buying off the shop. I'd love to read out everybody's messages, but it's logistically impossible because that is how much support we've been getting. It's absolutely incredible. But it would just take way too long to read out every single message sent by everybody. The amount of support is greatly appreciated, and it's a big help to keep the lights on, keep the wheels turning here at NSF, and we are very grateful to every single person who's contributed financially, as well as to everyone who's just watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, doing all of that jazz. That's also greatly appreciated. Shows YouTube that we are indeed a reputable source for information, and we put out some great content. We have another store message here coming in as well, so thank you very much for all of that. Now, Sawyer, we got some special members we'd like to thank.
Exactly. As you mentioned, the support is beyond greatly appreciated, and we've mentioned that if you become a launch director, flight engineer, you get your name at the end of every episode of NSF Live. So a huge thank you to all of these people, in particular right now on your screen, who have gone that extra yard to help us do what we are able to do here on this stream, bring you these live views, bring you these multicam views, bring you all of these perks that we're able to provide. So a major thank you to launch directors, flight engineers there on your screen. Make sure you see yourself, if you see yourself there, let us know in chat, and it's one of your added perks. So
we're gonna need more. Like, we're gonna need just like one single one for all launch directors and one for the flight engineers, because there's like so many of them. The font is just very, very tiny.
The font has had to be shrinked so much to fit all of the names on screen. It's a wonderful problem to have. So many different people.
We love every single one of them.
Thank you so much. We may have to consider, making a second slate to show everyone's names. I'd also like to thank the voices you've been hearing. First of all, in alphabetical order, we've had Mr. Alex. Thank you very much for coming on this afternoon.
It's always a pleasure. I'm super excited for tomorrow. Let's go, Starship!
And we've also had a Sawyer.
Not just a Sawyer, the Sawyer. The definitive article, you might say, for all the Doctor Who fans out there. But thank you for having me on. As always, we're getting close. It's getting real. And oh my gosh, the excitement. That's all I can say is the excitement.
And in the background, pushing buttons and making photons flow, we have had Caton, and we've also had Patrick. Thank you to you two for helping to keep the broadcasts flowing. My voice, I've been Ryan. I hope you have enjoyed the show. I'd like to remind everyone, just before we head out, We are going live midnight Central Time. That's 5 a.m. UTC. You can do your own time zone offset adjustments with that. That is when NSF is going to be spooling up the commentary. But of course, Starbase Live is always live. Doesn't necessarily always have commentary, but it does give you the live views of Starbase, so you can see the kind of final preparations going on there. And whilst we finish off this edition of NSF Live, we're actually going to be throwing you all over to the stream page for the OFT, so you can get your notifications set so you're ready to join us when we go live with dedicated commentary and all of that jazz over there. So thank you for watching this afternoon. We hope you've enjoyed the broadcast, and we'll see you all later. Goodbye, everyone.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RA-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.